Hey, I'm Jack Jenkins, founder and head coach at Remojo, and I wanted to welcome you to this masterclass on how to quit porn, break free from porn for good, achieve identity level transformation, and reboot your brain, body, and sex life. And I want to open with a promise to you, which is that by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what it takes to finally quit porn and find freedom forever. And you'll also understand exactly what makes it almost certain that you'll continue to struggle and fail to root out this habit. So we're going to look at all of the patterns which produce failure, struggle, and keep guys stuck in the cycle of going back to porn over and over again. Not just in terms of helping you quit porn for good, but also in terms of locking in, building self-discipline and self-mastery that creates other great results in your life. And in the process of putting together the Remojo program, I've interviewed the world's expert coaches, therapists, and neuroscientists, especially those which specialize in this problem, either through the Remojo podcast, some interesting body language there, or in other ways. Self-mastery literature, whether that's high-performance coaches like the best of the best, Tony Robbins within our programs, modern warriors, be like able to engage people on martial artists, and provide ancient warriors like the samurai writings of the Japanese, or the latest in behavioral science and habit change. We also draw upon the vast corpus of the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and also the wisdom of Tony Robbins here, which these are all things that I and our coaching team are familiar with. And then I want to follow that up with one of my own, which is that failure delivery follows users, customers, and let's dig into those and how the typical male experience class. So let's get into it. Guys up. So I want to start with a quote from a lifetime struggle with pornography and failure in terms of trying to quit. So typically you are exposed as a kid or teenager. The average age is 11, perhaps younger now, unfortunately. And what happens is that at that age, it's too exciting. You're too immature to know the risks. You're lacking self-control skills. And it quickly becomes a regular habit through your teenage years, through your youth or whatever. Then 10 years later, by 21, it's deeply embedded and either a regular habit, a compulsion, or an addiction that keeps coming back based on how life's going. You try willpower, blockers, forums, and maybe even accountability partners, but nothing seems to work or last longer than a month or two. And here's how the habit becomes deeply embedded within your life. So while developing the Remojo apps, we accrued an informal board of advisors, 600,000 users and customers. You can just imagine how many interactions we had through customer support messages, feedback, our community, personal coaching clients, group coaching clients, etc. Basically, we've seen it all, every pattern, problem, challenge, mindset, lifestyle, and belief system. I want to introduce our board of advisors. So first of all, Jeffrey, who destroys his morning routine and destroys performance tonight. He wants to be a leader of men, but he still acts like a 15-year-old. He wants to build generational wealth, but the only thing he's locked into is Pornhub. Then we've got Jeffress, hands in the air on Sunday, hands in his trousers on Monday. He wants to lead the house, wife, and family, but he's being led by online distractions. He's got a Bible app streak of 30, and unfortunately a Pornhub streak of the last 3 days as well. Then we've got Jeff Faria. He fasts Ramadan, then he feasts his eyes all day long. He makes tawbah this morning, but he's back at it by this evening. And he wants to stay pure, so now he's doing ghusl twice a day. Then you've got Jeffrett. He wants to be a billionaire, but he can't stop doom scrolling. He expects an 8, but he's fapping daily. And he thinks his testosterone is over 9,000, but in reality, he's married to his smartphone. And I hope you don't find those caricatures too offensive, but I'm just being a little extreme there to make a point. Maybe you recognize yourself in one of those 4 archetypes, even if just a little. And we asked Team Jeff to tell us how they managed to watch so much porn so consistently and never managed to quit for good. And we wanted to know their lifestyle, their mindset, beliefs and values, habits and routines, knowledge, strategies, solutions, and skill sets. And this next section of our masterclass is what they came up with. They're going to tell us those patterns which produce failure so reliably. So here are the common patterns that practically guarantee that you'll waste the rest of your life watching or struggling to quit porn. Some or all might apply depending upon your exact life and circumstances, right? So not everything's going to apply, but no doubt some of these things are going to hit if porn is a problem for you in any way. So let's start with the perfect lifestyle for porn maxing. Step 1, have zero boundaries. So you want to have your laptop and phone in the bedroom, bathroom, and wherever else. Just casually install any app, leave notifications on, and let anyone interrupt you at any point in time. And don't take control and master your physical domains either. You want to be a digital maximalist, so high screen time, low productivity, compulsive tech use, always listening to a podcast, a YouTube video, scrolling while eating, commuting, traveling in the bathroom, and more. Consume a ton of digital junk media daily. Install apps, create accounts, and use any tech that has any benefit without accounting for the costs. Perpetual gawking. So stare and gawk at every girl, compare, contrast, and collect, evaluate body parts, and just generally feast your eyes online and offline all throughout the day. And that leads us on to triggers. So you want to have your life full of triggers 24/7 with the social media explore page, scrolling feed-based social media networks, looking at girls in public and outdoor spaces, at the gym, yoga pants, leggings, etc., in cafes, beaches, at work, in the library, in the streets, sexualized ads, lingerie ads, and also engage with forms of entertainment that use women and sex and titillation to draw you in or keep you engaged. Now, not only are you triggered 24/7, but you should also have instant access. So you're never more than a few seconds away from acting upon those impulses. And the final part of the ideal lifestyle for porn maxing is lots of free time with no plans. So unstructured evenings, few positive time commitments, and just lots of time alone for self-care. Then we have the perfect routine for porn maxing, which is what I call vibe scheduling. So you wake up late with no AM routine, you go to bed late with no PM routine, and your calendar just kind of looks like that thing on the left. You take each day as it comes and you plan the day that day, if at all. Then there's the ideal belief system for porn maxing, which primarily revolves around the idea that you are special in some ways. So I've things like I've got high T or high libido, I need something unique, a special case, my brain's different. And then if someone told you you're not really that different, you would insist, but my brain is different. And then we have the global beliefs that will keep you trapped in the cycle of compulsively watching pornography, which are nihilism, meaninglessness, and the loser's trifecta of hopelessness, worthlessness, and helplessness. So the global beliefs that people who struggle with pornography have is that they believe life is meaningless. They may lose belief that they can actually quit for good. They may have a fixed identity and think this is just who I am. Or they have learned helplessness and they think I can't do it. Nothing works. There are also a load of delusional beliefs and illusions and lies that support the porn habit. Things like porn is fun or enjoyable. Porn is real and authentic when it's not. That it's legal and consensual. It's often not. That there's nothing wrong with porn, so you have no ethical foundation for quitting. That no one knows and that it's private. Of course, it's not private. Many companies and providers know, and others can probably guess. It's going to exist anyway. I'm not part of the problem. Of course, you are part of the problem. Just repent, start again later. How many times have you said that to yourself in the past? It's free. Of course, it's not. There's a huge cost, and it would be a sacrifice to give it up. Of course, it wouldn't be. It's all good. It's all gain. So now what typically happens is with that lifestyle, that history, and those beliefs, porn typically becomes a problem for guys that look anything like Jeff at all. And once it does become a problem, you may start to try and quit. And here is the Team Jeff super system on how to not quit porn. Step 1, how to mismanage urges, cravings, and temptations. So you should interpret everything as libido. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, that means porn. Bored, stressed, understimulated, fix those problems with porn. Fantasy, which fuels motivation for sexual behavior from within that you deliberately engage in and stoke the fire of, you interpret as real libido, when in fact you've just been fantasizing and revving up the engine, increasing desire for sexual activity, and you're interpreting that as natural libido when in fact it is self-induced craving. Then in terms of pattern interrupts or new behaviors, you choose horrible replacements. So don't use proven evidence-based craving management techniques or self-mastery systems. Never practice, rehearse, or visualize them ahead of time. Just wait until the moment comes and hope you kind of remember to do it. Wait until your brain's flooded with dopamine to try and bail out rather than killing it early. And choose something miserable that takes massive willpower, like cold showers, so that you rarely follow through. Next up, how to track your lack of progress. And believe it or not, this image on the left is actually a real app with hundreds of thousands, if not a million plus installs. And what it does and what other kind of nofap systems and apps and communities do is they teach you to think of this as a perpetual struggle. So count the days one at a time, watch the minutes and hours tick by as you resist that sweet, sweet porn, and don't define what constitutes a reset event ahead of time. Just negotiate with yourself when the time comes, whether you're going to reset your streak or not. And then when you do reset your streak, you're back to zero. So you despair because you're back to square one. You've destroyed all of your progress. You've ruined everything. And then that leads to making the most of it by binging and committing to start again tomorrow. And you should, of course, reject resilience and cultivate fragility. So take a week to bounce back. Just cope and binge. Use stimulants to cope with any negative emotional state. When you slip up, double down and binge before you start again. Take 3 to 5 days to get back on track. Team Jeff loves smoking, fast food, and drinking. And of course, don't make a final decision. Just keep your options open. So rather than making any big commitments or getting skin in the game with a real financial investment, just start a free trial at $4.99 a month that only converts after a week. Because sure, you might feel motivated to quit right now or after your last session, but that feeling's not going to last. So try to quit for free. Don't invest or get expert help. Just figure it out yourself over the next few years. Make small, single commitments one at a time. Don't stack them and don't overcommit. Next up, how to talk about your struggles with Indian teenagers online. So you want to get the nofap teenager coaching crew on your side. Surround yourself with doom scrolling, porn addicted incels on Reddit. Celebrate each day without jacking off as a big success and get coaching from those who are actively struggling the most. And of course, we haven't yet mentioned blocker apps. So here's how to block porn and gamify your compulsive sexual behaviors for between $5 and $15 a month. So what you want to do is install a blocker that you'll uninstall as soon as you want to watch porn. So you should try and sign up and experiment with various blocking apps. And make sure to try and jailbreak each one during the free trial to see which is strongest. And if you do find a way to break it after the free trial has ended, you should complain and ask for a refund or just do a chargeback. You want to subscribe monthly to minimize your investment and commitment to this process, and just hope that the company doesn't try to maximize customer lifetime value. I mean, you might have noticed that incentives are not aligned at all between any of these apps and you, but that doesn't really matter. You just kind of hope that they have their best interests, that your best interests at heart. And what you should do is enjoy the dopamine rush of the game, of trying to find a workaround, and just end up watching porn on X or Reddit anyway when you give up. Now, here's how to avoid responsibility and avoid developing self-discipline skills. This one is especially courtesy of Jeffress, our Christian. So you should sign up to Covenant Eyes and pay $150 plus a year and just hope they don't try to maximize lifetime value or keep you subscribed or any way. You should get someone to monitor your browser history. Even though you say you believe in God and you believe that God is all-knowing and watching everything, you need to pay a buddy to scan your browser history on a daily basis, just in case God misses anything. Now on to impulse control. So here's how to ignore behavioral signs and spend all your willpower on avoiding porn rather than pursuing goals that move your life forward. So the game plan for this is that you should work at home. You should use your laptop for leisure, entertainment, social life, personal admin, and more. You should keep it there open, available all of the time. And once you've finally finished work, you should pick up your phone, keep it in your pocket, bring it into the bathroom, and then put it beside your bed. Basically, just live your life like this kid staring at a marshmallow. And if you eat the marshmallow, you ruin your life. So good luck. Hope you have lots of willpower. You should also avoid boredom at all costs. So don't meditate because meditation is boring and it's hard. You should just layer dopamine sources on top of each other to the point that you can't stand being in silence or understimulated for more than a few minutes. Finally, don't think and don't reflect. If you do run into a problem, just post one-word questions with no context, like help, in the NoFap subreddit and get other people who are struggling to jump in with answers that have absolutely no reference to any context, your challenges, your goals, your sticking points, or whatever. So I hope you enjoyed the masterclass on how to not quit porn from Team Jeff. And you're probably at this point asking, so what is the answer? And there's no silver bullet, right? Everyone's looking for that one thing, the quick hack, the silver bullet that's just going to solve everything. And I really hate giving guys answers like that. But if I had to give you one, I would say that it is Jeffrey must die. You must become a new man. You need to think, believe, approach, do, and just generally live in the exact opposite way to these guys. While I can't give you a silver bullet, I can give you a load of golden rounds, which are: you'll need new beliefs, knowledge, and mindset. You'll need new values and ethics that you're truly committed to living. You'll need new skills that you use to stay on track and pick yourself up fast. A new lifestyle and routines that support self-mastery. A new identity that's positive, integrated, and aligned. And lastly, and this is important as well, no effing copes. So no porn, gambling, no compulsive or addictive gaming. I think some games are okay. Alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. And the question is, would this even be the same person? The answer is obviously no. That's why the real answer to the question, how to quit porn, is transformation of identity and lifestyle. You have to transform from the guy we just looked at to a new type of man, the literal inverse of all of those characteristics. With new beliefs, knowledge, and mindset, new values and ethics, new skills, new lifestyle and routines, new identity, and no copes. So, do you want the good news? Well, this journey is incredibly satisfying and fulfilling. It's fun and it will put you on track to fulfilling your true ultimate potential. I can vouch for that. When I started this process 5-6 years ago, I never knew what would come from it, and it has been life-changing in every way, not just with the success that I've had with the Remojo company, but in my personal life, work life, spiritual life, family life, sex and relationships, etc. Everything has improved as a result of doing this. And I've learned a load of skills that are applicable to self-discipline, locking in, self-mastery, and making things happen in general, right? All of the skills that you will learn on this journey are completely transferable. And so most of it isn't about porn specifically. It's about learning how to commit, how to practice self-discipline skills that will serve you for a lifetime, becoming more present, alive, connected, and purposeful. It's about getting your act together and manning up and becoming stronger, more resilient, and more determined across the board. And a quick PS here, you also need healthy sexual fulfillment that's in alignment with your values and beliefs. So no hypocrisy, no inner conflicts, but no indefinite monk mode abstinence and long-term celibacy either, unless your goal is to be a Christian saint. So let's get into how to quit. What's the answer? And I want to open again with another quote from Tony Robbins. It is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. So you need to break the habit and build the identity that you've always wanted. And these neurons must go. You have a load of connections in your mind between things like your home office, morning doom scroll, response to stress, situations like the wife being away and home alone, IG fitness models, all of these things leading back to Pornhub. And these connections have to be broken down. And thankfully, we have something called neural pruning. And what that means is that if you don't use those connections, if you don't fire those connections for long enough, and you start to wire in new connections and alternative routines, rituals, responses, behaviors, etc., then the brain will naturally break those connections down over time until they become so weak that you can easily handle them, and then ultimately they disappear. And then you are free. So there's no point in counting the days because everyone's brain rewires at different rates, right? And you can't tie any day count to anything specific. So the rate at which your brain is going to rewire is going to be completely dependent upon you, right? Your history, how the intent. So there's no point in counting the days because everyone's brain is going to rewire at different rates based on all kinds of factors like your history, the kind of porn, the intensity of porn that you've used and for how long, the age at which you were doing it, the new habits and routines and rituals and mindsets that you build as part of this process, whether you go on big binges or edging for hours or whether you have quick sessions, all of these things are going to affect the strength of those connections in your mind and therefore how quickly you can undo them, break them, and ultimately form new associations. So you can't tie an arbitrary day count to anything specific. And this is one way in which you actually are unique. So what I would say to you is just enjoy the journey and the process of growing and becoming who you could be, you special snowflake you. So how do we give ourselves enough of a break for those connections to break down? And how do we accelerate the process? Here's the framework that we've developed at Remojo at a very high level, right? So we'll start off at the high level and then we'll get into strategy and tactics and details throughout the second half of this masterclass. But at the highest possible level, step one is to break the habit. And that might take somewhere between 1 and 60 days, depending upon how hard you go and how much you invest and how seriously you take the process. But it can definitely be done in 30, maybe 60 if you have a moderate to severe history with porn and a very high level of compulsivity. It really depends on the amount of changes that you need to make. But we're looking at something like 1 to 60 days. And then the second phase is committing forever and transforming your lifestyle and identity and then conditioning the change to make it permanent. And that's day 30 plus. Again, these are fairly arbitrary timelines, but just to give you some sense of how things map out over time. Because one of the top questions that everyone has when they're trying to quit pornography is, how long is this going to take? And an even more powerful question is, can change happen in an instant? Is it possible to be free from this immediately? And what I would say is actually yes, that you're free as soon as you make a real decision. What takes time is conditioning in the change to make it permanent and building all of the supporting habits and the lifestyle and the replacement activities and connections, etc., to really support long-term freedom from pornography and build a life that you don't have to cope with. So while it might take you up to, let's say, a year to fully undo a decade or more of porn and conditioning in that direction and rebuild your life, in reality, as soon as you've quit, you're winning. You're really free from day one. What you're doing is you're just consolidating and building that new identity and that new lifestyle. So with that said, let's break it down further, right? So let's dig into phase one, breaking the habit, and see what are these sub-steps involved. And we've identified 6 in the Remojo program. So step 1 is to invest, maximize commitment, and lock in. Second is to take control of your days. Then you have to take control of your days, sleep schedule, your domains, physical and digital, and some basic habits. And then third, you need to get accountable to making progress daily, ideally with yourself, but also with a coach or a community. Then you need to break the habit systematically with behavioral science. Step 5 is mastering impulse control for unbeatable self-discipline when unavoidable triggers and other situations do come up and you have to take control there. And then the 6th step is to recommit daily. So you have to maintain and renew your commitment until it becomes a part of who you are and is completely cemented and permanent. And the Remojo program is actually structured in that way. So the first half starts off with, onboarding and then a load of quick wins to take control of your life. Then we install the winning mindset. Then we have behavioral engineering mastery, which is where we use behavioral science to actually break the habit loops that your porn habit is composed of. And then step 5 is mastering your impulses. So we train the tier list of techniques for transcending, writing, redirecting, suppressing, repressing, stuffing, etc. Just mastering impulses in every way possible. And then the final step of this first half of the program is then to recommit and commit forever, double down, and learn how to maintain, renew, and deepen commitment to permanent freedom from porn. And that leads us to phase 2, which is the permanent transformation part. And this has 3 key steps to it. So the first of those is to let go and release the lies, delusions, and illusions that are supporting your porn habit, and also release any attachment to it. Second is lifestyle transformation, so revitalizing and resensitizing yourself to real life, to healthy pleasures and meaningful engagements. And then the third step is identity transformation, so setting up your life for self-mastery and then expanding your identity, living it daily until porn basically becomes completely incompatible with who you are and how you live. And the second half of the Remojo program is structured around these elements. So we have, letting go materials to actually transcend the struggle and break down all those lies, delusions, and illusions. Then we have revitalization, which is where we make porn less appealing and life more appealing with renewed energy, health, well-being, presence, connection, and other kind of activities to help remove other super stimulants that basically make you numb to life. And then we've got the final stages, which is putting together a life of self-mastery, making sure that you have the life infrastructure to stay on track. And then ultimately misogi, which is a Japanese concept referring to transcendental challenges that push yourself beyond your current limits so that you can evolve and transcend who you are and really redefine your sense of self by proving that you are capable of much more than you thought you were. And you can see we have some other tools there like the compass for resilient recovery and also curated third-party videos, book reviews, etc. But I also want to give you a lot of strategy and tactics so that you can really see what this process looks like. And if you're taking notes, you can do it yourself. If you don't want to pay for any of our programs or join, you can take notes and implement these strategy and tactics in your own life. So let's begin with making the decision. A decision means cutting off all other options. Real decisions determine your fate, and your life is the result of the decisions that you've made up to this point. Your destiny, your fate, your life 5 to 10 years from now will largely be based on the decisions that you're making right now. So you need to make some decisions and redesign the lifestyle that is currently supporting your porn habit. And you want to be smart about that, engineering for easy, right? So getting quick wins and thinking in systems so that you can change one thing and it changes 100 things or 1,000 things down the line. So the first step that we recommend is that you take control of your domains, your days, and start to set some boundaries on technology, right? So you want to tidy up, clean up, declutter, redefine your relationship with tech and set boundaries, and actually have a schedule to help you take control of your days with the 3 core pillars of self-discipline, which I'll get into in just a minute. And to dig into what that means in terms of mastering your domain and minimizing triggers, you want to clean up your key spaces where you spend most of your time, right? So you have the computer desktop, you have your home and your home office, the dojo, and then you have your phone. You will spend most of your time in these 3 environments, right? On the laptop, at home, and on the smartphone. So you have physical and digital domains. And this is what my desktop actually looks like. This is a screenshot from today, where as of the time of recording, and as you can see, this is what the desktop of a founder and CEO looks like. No distractions, no triggers, nothing except absolutely essential apps. You can see I've got 2 notes apps for different things. One's for AI tools, one's for personal. Then we've got Google Chrome, Todoist, the to-do list app. We've got Keynote that I'm making this presentation from, and Spotify to get the energy to make this presentation with a bit of music beforehand. So you want to declutter and organize your digital domains and also your physical domains. So think offline and online. Then you want to redefine your relationship with tech, right? So you may have never set any boundaries, and a good way to just start taking control is to set some boundaries in terms of physical areas or locations. So I would highly recommend The top three to begin with are the bedroom, the bathroom, and the kitchen. Those spaces have specific purposes: sleep and sex, hygiene and grooming, cooking and nourishment. And you should try and purify those spaces and keep them for those intents. Then you have time slots. So you can see my calendar in the top right there. Obviously, absolutely no tech overnight. So I never want to be disrupting sleep with laptops or phones. So I have 6.5 hours of absolute no tech during those key sleeping hours. And then I also have 60 to 90 minutes before I go to bed, which is also tech-free time. And then you want to designate some tech-free activities as well. So maybe quality time with girlfriend, wife, partner, whatever, and perhaps some other thing, maybe your church or mosque time, etc. Other activities like that that you commit to making tech-free. And then to take control of your days, I recommend 3 core practices to our members, to my clients. The 3 pillars of a disciplined day are an AM routine, a daily closeout journaling practice where you reflect on the day and you plan tomorrow today, and then also a PM protocol, a wind down, an evening routine that clears your mind, maybe does some spiritual work, and really prepares for the best possible sleep and keeps you on track rather than messing up tonight, losing the day, and also losing tomorrow, finding yourself back on porn or doom scrolling or whatever. And as part of this early work of really taking control of your life, you want to get accountable. So ideally, we want all of our members to become completely self-reliant and hold themselves accountable. That's the ultimate aim. So you want to start holding yourself accountable. And the number one recommendation that we have for that is to start with 3 simple daily questions. If you don't already hold yourself to account and review your day, you can start with these 3 questions, and these will work even as the CEO of a big company or whatever. They scale very well and they're very simple. So they are just what went well, what went badly, or what went wrong. There's a typo there. How do I need to fix it ASAP? So hopefully you can course correct tomorrow. So that will help you focus on the good things from today, where you went off track, and figure out what you need to change tomorrow to avoid going off track in the same way or avoid any poor performance or things that you didn't like about your day. Secondly, you can get accountable to a coach like myself or one of the Remojo team. And at the highest tier, we have hardcore accountability, which is where you get access to the Remojo program, and then also a coach on your case 20 times Monday to Friday over the course of a month to really make progress as quickly as humanly possible. And then we also have one-to-one and group coaching calls where you can get coaching and mentorship on either a weekly or ad hoc basis. Thirdly, you want to be accountable to a community, but you want that community to be high quality, right? You want it to be a group full of serious, mature, committed guys who are actually making progress, and maybe with some kind of gate or exclusivity or screening process to cut out all of the junk and the toxic advice, negativity, complaining, blaming, shaming, etc., and all the weird ideas about sex and sexuality and women that are out there on Reddit and on the internet. So you can hold yourself accountable to a group or community on a daily basis. And one thing I love as the founder of Remojo is actually I'm accountable to the community, right? I have a community to be accountable to. And that keeps me on track, not in terms of staying away from porn, but in terms of practicing self-mastery and self-discipline in all ways and being an example and shipping updates and improving the program, delivering things, coaching people on a daily basis. It really helps. So now you're starting to turn things around. You want to deepen that by taking more responsibility for your life and behavior and mastering the meta skill of behavioral engineering. And what that means is really making use of behavioral science and the key models that have emerged within behavioral science, like this one, the FOG behavior model, which says that behavior is a function of motivation, ability, and prompts. And we can work with those 3 levers, we can manipulate them to actually manipulate our own behavior. So what we do in the Remojo program is we help guys use these principles of behavioral engineering to break the habit loop, right? So you want to minimize triggers, obstruct access. Notice I don't say block, because blocking porn is not really possible. You can filter it, you can obstruct it, but you can't create a porn-free world for yourself while also using a phone and laptop. You want to reduce reward and motivation, and then condition and celebrate every win. And then also condition and negatively reinforce bad behavior. So I'm going to get into a few more details now on these things. So you can start by minimizing external triggers. You want to adjust your habits out and about in the physical world, right? So stop setting yourself up to look at girls as they come in the door every 20, 30 seconds. If you're in a cafe or library or gym or whatever, stop staring, stop gawking. You can also reorganize your triggering home environments to remove contextual prompts. You can set up simple blockers and filters to cut prompts and also stop triggering motivation for sexual behavior all throughout the day. So you can use some simple tools to just proactively filter stuff out. And then you should also make some real decisions on media, social media, and entertainment, right? So think about the things that you engage with and whether you really want to allow all of those sexual triggers and sexualized media into your life on a daily basis, even an hourly basis. Then the second lever is obstructing access. So here we've got filtering, blocking, and locking, and also physical analog changes like this guy on the right is doing it right. He's wearing a belt and trousers, and stuff like that will help. These small things, just introducing friction between yourself and acting out on impulse immediately, especially at the beginning when you're really struggling to break the back of this habit. And then you've got reducing the reward. So you want to shorten sessions, de-escalate the material, focus on the negatives, and what I would call read the ingredients. So the more you learn about pornography, the less appealing it becomes. A bit like junk food where you look at the ingredients list and you see all of the crap in it and suddenly you don't want that junk food anymore. You can read the ingredients on the porn industry and learn a bit more about the people behind it, the performers, how it's all made, who owns it, who benefits, who monetizes it, etc. And that will reduce your motivation to engage. And then as you're making these changes, a key part of behavioral engineering is conditioning. So you need to have positive and negative conditioning, right? So we have an image on the right here of Rafa Nadal celebrating, and he's not afraid to be cringeworthy and celebrate every point, everything that he does right, everything that he does well. You'll get a fist pump and you get a vamos. And that's part of him being a champion and dominating his field. So if you want to dominate your field, which is your life, you need to get over yourself and start celebrating the good stuff that you do, the micro wins. You want to celebrate every point and condition in good behaviors. You also want to replace instant gratification with instant negative reinforcement, right? So you need to condition the bad behaviors with negative reinforcement as well. That's where things like the cold showers come in as micro punishments, harmless punishments that actually introduce negative conditioning so that you have mixed associations with porn, right? Because at the moment, your brain only sees porn as instant gratification, long-term pain. But if you can introduce some short-term pain, that will start to create inner conflicts about watching porn itself. And I want to give you a personal example of this in terms of how I punished my own doom scrolling. So during the American election cycle, the Trump-Musk tag team comeback was pretty epic, and I got kind of hooked on the news cycle around that time. X is my favorite platform, and I ended up spending way too much time on there. And I stayed up pretty late one night, close to the election, essentially locked into Twitter. And I was furious with myself. I just realized where I was at like 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. or something like that. I'd gone completely off track, and I knew tomorrow was basically effed up, and I was going to sacrifice a day of performance for this. And it's ridiculous. I'm not even American. So I realized I needed to punish that and negatively reinforce that kind of behavior because I never wanted to do that again. And so what I did is after that slip, I got out of bed, I got dressed, I made a coffee, I sat down at my desk and I started a second day again. And I did a 12-hour workday, 0 sleep. And it was hell. It was productive actually because I got into the flow somehow, maybe with, having no other option because I was committed to not losing the day. But it was hell. And I haven't done it since because I immediately punished it with pretty severe negative reinforcement. Doing 12 hours work or no sleep is not fun. And it would certainly deter me from ever getting caught doom scrolling like that again. Moving on now to impulse control mastery. So you want to train self-mastery like a martial artist. What do I mean by that? Well, how do martial artists prepare to perform the right move at the right time in response to their opponent? They train a repertoire of moves, optimal responses, defenses and counterattacks, slowly and deliberately ahead of time. They develop plans. If the opponent throws this type of punch, do X. If they kick low, do Y. And then they train over and over again until the response becomes automatic. They might complement this with real practice, like sparring, or imagined practice, drilling and putting in the reps in their mind. And so to develop self-mastery skills, we do the same. So to manage temptation, you need to learn self-discipline skills. And that means practicing, rehearsing, and drilling, doing the right thing ahead of time. So that's why on the Remojo program, I actually teach guys how to do if-then implementation intentions. We install these kind of predefined algorithmic behaviors ahead of time through guided mental rehearsal, visualization, and imagination. So that way you've drilled doing the right thing, you've drilled choosing smarter responses, new routines, and new rewards into your subconscious ahead of time. And that allows you to actually manage impulses in the moment like you've done it 10 to 20 times before, because you actually have, just in your mind's eye. You also need to halt the F and BS. So this is an acronym that we use for hungry, angry, lonely, tired, fantasy, boredom, and stress. And you need to learn to differentiate between signal and noise, right? So that you can separate real libido from cravings and negative emotions and negative states that you want to run away from or cope with using porn, and then choose smarter responses to those basic physiological and emotional signals. At the beginning, you want to go hard and really break the patterns with hard interrupts. So train yourself to take control early and use short, sharp, decisive interrupts to break those patterns abruptly. This is where things like the cold showers, running and leaving the environment, introducing something completely incongruent like Quran, Psalms, worship, music, Bible recitation, whatever, etc. But pretty quickly, within a week or two, you want to move into the softer techniques where we start to redirect and master motivation. So this is where you want to get into using less disruptive, less effortful techniques to work with your motivation without hard, dramatic interrupts, right? So this is where you learn how to use distraction, redirection, and a technique called anticipated regret to demotivate yourself from watching porn. These motivational mastery techniques really just help you redirect your mind and energy rather than suppressing and fighting and struggling, etc. And you want to get there as soon as possible so that ultimately you can move to the highest level, which is to simply surf and transcend. This is where you have no more fighting, no more battles. You can leave all the combative language aside. You just get on with your life, no big deal. You're able to ride out cravings and urges, or simply let them go, or even transmute them into something higher and transcend them. And this is where you alchemize those cravings and turn them into positive momentum. This final stage is the most enjoyable because you're able to simply be at ease with yourself and with your body and mind and work with it and turn it into fuel to be even better. As you're doing all of this, cultivating mindfulness is really going to help you with impulse mastery. And I added this as an aside because I really highly recommend that you learn to meditate, you learn to establish the habit, and you learn to enjoy it, right? Most people hate it or just don't enjoy it enough to make it stick. It's important that you break the back of this habit and learn to enjoy it because it will make everything else easier. It's not 100% essential, but it will help, especially at the beginning, and it will help a lot. So while you're mastering the art of self-mastery, you'll want to actually track progress towards transformation rather than simply streak counts. So you want to track real progress, right? So I recommend that you track your self-mastery and discipline skills as well as your freedom from pornography, right? So yeah, you want to think about maybe how many days it's been roughly. Can you remember the last time you watched pornography or not? But you want to track things more holistically. You want to note down benefits, breakthroughs, outcomes you're experiencing, things you're enjoying as a result of making that change so that you have a holistic view. And tracking patterns rather than streaks allows you to basically maximize your learning and focus on the growth and beneficial changes, the reasons why you're actually doing this. And as you're doing this, you'll probably mess up and fall off a few times. So you'll need to become anti-fragile rather than weak. So what is resilience actually? Well, resilience can be defined. Most guys don't know this, but resilience is a process. So it's about how quickly you go from negative event to negative emotions through to constructive and positive thoughts, then positive emotions, and then positive actions. How quickly you go through this cycle determines how resilient you are. And so you need to practice that skill if you fall off track, which most guys do at some point. And as you do progress, you'll either slip up and need to get back on track, as I just said, or you'll wonder whether you really want to quit for good, because you'll adjust to the benefits and you'll maybe forget the reasons why you really wanted to quit. You maybe will forget that emotional experience where you decided months ago or weeks ago to quit, and you'll start considering going back. And that's when you'll need to basically double down and lock in so that you can commit forever. So most guys, when they sign up to a program like Remojo, or they decide to quit porn for good, they have an emotional or spiritual commitment that is very strong. The problem with that is that that kind of emotional commitment only lasts for like 20 to 30 minutes, maybe a few hours, but it's generally gone even by the end of the day. And it certainly doesn't persist 24/7 or over the course of weeks or months. And so if you want to make this change permanent, you have to learn how to layer on additional forms of commitment that are more durable and long term. So things like rational commitment, like being able to make really, really precise arguments for exactly why you need to quit and stay quit and never go back. Financial commitment, so actually having made some investments and have some skin in the game so that there's real pain if you do go back to porn and you feel like you've wasted your money. Social commitments, like I said, to a community or a coach, and then practical commitments, obligations, restrictions, etc., that lock you into this new lifestyle, this new identity, the new practices, routines, and habits. And if you're feeling ready to commit, I do recommend that you like and subscribe to this channel, because there's going to be much more coming to help you quit and stay on track. So we want to coach you to success, yes, through our program, but also through our YouTube channel with content like this. So please do give us a like, helps the channel grow, and subscribe so that you don't miss future videos. Now moving into phase 2, the transformational letting go portion. You want to transcend, let go, and move on. Once you've committed forever and you've broken the back of the habit with all of that behavioral engineering and impulse control stuff, you want to learn how to transcend and let go of your attachment easily. So you need to learn to make porn completely unappealing, unrewarding, and unattractive, or even repulsive. You want to learn how to simply let go of any attachment or remaining desire for porn, and learn how to take that energy and motivation and pour it into real things. And you can journal your way to clarity, right? So I would highly recommend that you just journal extensively on the subject of porn and why you need to quit and why you want to quit and get leverage on yourself. The answer really is power questions. You want to break through the lies, illusions, and delusions that support your porn habit, and you can journal your way to clarity. So I highly recommend that you do that. That's something you can just do on your own after this video. And the more powerful questions you can ask to break those lies, illusions, and delusions, the better. So try to ask the deepest, most profound questions that are going to break that frame. Now, the end goal is to simply forget about porn as much as you can in the modern world and move on ASAP. And so you need to transform your mindset, because there are a load of winning mindsets and losing mindsets. And you need to transform your mindset because there are a load of supporting mindsets or losing mindsets that keep you trapped in the cycle. And they're on the left here, things like "this is who I am," a reliance on third-party controls, thinking of quitting porn as giving up or sacrificing something, combative language like fighting and struggling. Using that language for anything more than like a week isn't really constructive. Creating these fake rules like "I'll be free when this or that," or "I'll start doing this when I've done that," or "start talking to women when I've got a 30-day streak," all of this kind of nonsense. And then, of course, as we mentioned at the start of the class, being like a tech maximalist. And the inverse of that are the winning mindset. So, thinking things like "I am the character that I build," building internal agency and first-party control over your own self, thinking of quitting porn as letting go or growing out of it. Rather than fighting and struggling, you're transcending and transmuting and letting go. I think I'm free now and I'm getting freer as I condition in the change. And also being an essentialist and only really including technology in your life when it really benefits a clear purpose for you. So doing that work will start to transform your paradigm. And I want to give you some tips for how you can actually take that even further and really shape your mind and identity in the way that you want to. And the first of those is using effective affirmations. So you should use affirmations to program your mind to live out your ideal identity and become the man that you always wanted to be. They do work, especially if you construct them correctly. You should stop defining yourself in relation to porn and associated behaviors or mindsets. So in the Remojo program, we don't make you into a Remojo guy or a porn-free guy or whatever. You set your own ideal identity and work towards that rather than defining yourself in relation to porn in any way, good or bad. You also start to see porn for what it is. And then, as I said, start to adopt winning mindsets and discard losing ones over time so that ultimately you become porn free forever. And the Remojo program is structured in this way. So we have the first half on the behavioral components, breaking the habit. And then the second half guides our members through that more transformational work and reflective work and lifestyle design, etc., to really settle into permanent freedom and start to live out that identity that you've always wanted to be. As you do start to move on with your life, you'll want to immunize yourself and make sure that you never slip back into old ways. And so you need to create a life that you don't need to cope with. This is where we get into the lifestyle transformation, lifestyle design process. Quitting pornography has been very transformational for me. It's really set up a much higher quality of life. And I'm obviously now happily married with 2 children. And lots of other things have changed besides. And so this is where you want to pour that extra energy that you have, that time and that space and clarity away from pornography into designing the life that you've always wanted. And you'll also want to, at this point, revitalize mind, body, and soul. So our minds are very numbed by all of these super stimulants and junk media out there at the moment. So you can resensitize yourself to life and find ordinary pleasures much more enjoyable again by cutting addictive copes like super stimulants, finding meaning and purpose, something bigger to focus on and get excited about, and improve your overall well-being. So learning to address problems and handle situations like a man rather than running away from them or covering them over with addictive stuff. And if you don't want to end up an aging zombie, you'll need to do this eventually. So the question I would ask you is, why not now? You'll also want to start closing out the process by setting up your life for self-mastery for good. So, setting up basic life infrastructure that keeps you on track day in, day out. Things like clear reminders of your vision, master plan, goals, things you want to avoid, etc., and other kind of focus mechanisms to make sure that you continue to progress in the same direction. And again, stop yourself from falling back into old habits. And if you want to get anywhere close to your real potential or your dream life, you'll need to do this anyway. So I would say, why not now? Why not use quitting pornography as the way, the path to learning all of those skills that you need to know and making all of those changes that you need to make? And as I said, the Remojo program is very much structured so that we spend the second half on that lifestyle design and transformational coaching, the revitalization, helping you basically use all of the skills that you've developed in breaking the porn habit to build a better life and transform yourself in the ways that you've always wanted to. And so just to recap that process, we're taking control and responsibility up front, stabilizing the situation, building self-mastery skills, starting to track progress and stay accountable, practicing resilience, then changing mindset and letting go of attachments, delusions, lies, and illusions, transforming your lifestyle and transforming your identity. And that's the 30 to 90 plus day period and could last from anything up to, let's say, a year or more if you have many, many changes to make. But of course, as I said, it's fun, it's rewarding, it's enjoyable, and it's not really about pornography anymore. It's more about personal development, growth, and transformation. So why this somewhat strange order? You might notice some differences in the way that I've ordered things and the way that Remojo approaches things compared to other apps or influencers or YouTubers or whatever. And the logic is this: you first need to stop things from getting worse. You have to stop reinforcing the habit and arrest the conditioning make it easier, and reduce the need for willpower and self-mastery skills up front, then you need to develop the self-mastery skills before you start tracking progress. Otherwise, you'll be holding yourself to standards that you're not actually skilled enough to meet, constantly beating yourself up, failing, and just wiring in a negative identity, thinking of yourself as a loser, struggling, incompetent, or whatever. And that leads us on to point 3, which is that you need to start tracking progress wisely to be able to be resilient. If you don't have any progress to reflect on, things like real benefits, outcomes, changes, transformations that you're seeing, skills that you've gained, things that you've learned, patterns you've recognized, you will struggle to find positivity or patterns to fuel positive thoughts and actions. The 4th point is that you need to experience what it's really like to live and operate from a true growth mindset. That's why you practice resilience, thinking and acting differently before trying to change your mindset more generally. And you need to actually change your mindset before you can sort of recommit to permanent change, right? Because there's that upfront commitment that you have that's very emotional, but it's actually somewhat shallow. And you need to actually have some space in pornography to know and have full conviction that this is the right direction. Because a lot of guys have some resistance to fully letting go and really living without this as a crutch anymore. And once you have the new skills, behaviors, approach, mindset, and beliefs, you're ready for the true paradigm shift and you'll start to see things differently. And so the logical order sets guys up for failure at every step, right? So blocker apps and blocking before self-control or commitment. So without self-control and commitment, you'll just turn the blockers off. Accountability before honesty and having the skills to actually succeed. Why would you get someone to hold you accountable before you've even got the skills to stay disciplined? That's why most people can't be honest with their accountability partners, because they are failing and they're just having to hide the fact that they're failing because they don't really know how to quit. They're just being held accountable to quitting, but they don't know how to do it. So that doesn't really work. And then tracking progress without the abilities and knowledge to make progress. So there's no point in starting a streak counter or getting like a NoFap app or whatever and tracking progress without having all the skills. Like if you don't have the skills, you're not going to make progress, and just resetting that streak is going to demoralize you and reinforce the idea that you're an incompetent loser that just can't control yourself. And lastly, like alpha male influencers shouting at you to just quit or whatever, basically just saying do willpower rather than use behavioral engineering, behavioral science, and real self-mastery skills and lifestyle design are just going to set you up for failure as well, because obviously willpower doesn't work. If you're watching this, especially if you're watching it this deep into the masterclass, you want to quit. So the will is there, but the systems, the lifestyle, the identity, the beliefs, everything else, the skills are just not there. And those need to be in place. And so the Remojo program is structured to reflect the real journey of transformation. We build control, competence, confidence, skill sets, and systems before we start tracking progress and holding each other accountable and committing to permanent changes and new identities. So if you're ready to quit now, you should work with me and my coaching team, get accountable to a small committed community, and join us over on School. There'll be a link around this video to check out the program. You can go to school.com/Remojo and check it out. There's a video here with the offer, the terms of our guarantee. We have a 100% success guarantee policy. Check out some more information. We've got a detailed walkthrough here of the program, and we've also got the program outlined in slides, and then you can see more about the specific offer and some extra details. You can also book a free 30-minute strategy call if you're interested in either this program or the hardcore one-to-one accountability with me or one of my team. Or you can book a 60-minute coaching session if you just want targeted help, or you want to try out working with, again, me or one of the Remojo team for an hour and see how that helps before considering signing up to the full program and really committing. But if you're ready to quit, of course, I recommend that you just dive in. We've got tons of experience helping guys with this problem, and we hope to actually see you as a member of this community. But if you're not quite ready yet, or either way, then please do like this video and subscribe for more. And I hope to see you soon, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's in one of our programs or coaching calls. Hope you got a lot of value from this masterclass. Hope that it really clarified the process for you and gave you some deep insights. These have been hard-earned. They've taken 5-6 years to uncover, and working with hundreds of thousands of guys on this problem. But I hope that you got a lot of clarity and you uncovered a lot of patterns and insights that you can apply to start changing your life from today. So go and make it happen, and hopefully see you soon.